Hi, I'm going to read a little bit of my story here that I've been working on. So here we go. My search for 100% recovery. When I entered recovery in 2012, I was told that recovery was 100% possible for people who followed the suggestions. I took those words seriously. In my mind, anything less than 100% recovery was failure, and I would not accept failure. I was not interested in learning how to live indefinitely with an addiction while constantly fighting it. I wanted complete freedom. I wanted the addiction gone. At first, I believed the path to recovery existed entirely within 12-step programs and recovery literature. I became familiar with Alcoholics Anonymous, Narcotics Anonymous, and Overeaters Anonymous. I entered recovery on September 4th, 2012, and I worked within those programs, trying to follow the suggestions as honestly as I could. The programs helped me enormously. They gave me structure, language, fellowship, spiritual principles, and ways of living that I had not possessed before. But my addiction to food and overeating remained. I could experience periods of abstinence and improvement, but the underlying urge was still there. I had not reached the 100% recovery I had been promised and had decided to pursue. Some people might call my refusal to accept anything less stubbornness, but stubbornness can also be persistence. I had decided that complete recovery was possible, and I was not willing to abandon that belief simply because I had not yet found it. For many years, I kept searching within the boundaries of recovery programs. I read recovery literature, listened to speakers, attended meetings, and tried to understand what I was missing. I assumed the answer had to be somewhere inside the materials I had already been given. Then in 2021, something happened that changed the direction of my search. I was in a food addiction treatment, and a counselor said that she would not tell people they could not look at resources outside of Alcoholics Anonymous or other 12-step literature. She did not command me to leave the programs. She did not tell me that recovery literature was wrong. She simply refused to place a restriction on where the truth could be found. That statement gave me permission. Until then, I had unconsciously believed that looking outside 12-step literature might be disloyal, unsafe, or spiritually wrong. Her words opened a door. I realized I was allowed to investigate other spiritual teachers, other ideas, other explanations, and other possible ways of understanding addiction. The goal had not changed. I still wanted 100% recovery, but now the field of exploration became much wider. As I searched more broadly, I also had to examine my idea of God. My earliest feeling about God had not begun in church. It began with the person upon whom I was completely dependent as a small child. A baby is helpless. The caregiver is the source of food, protection, comfort, and survival. Long before a child has language, that relationship teaches the child what dependence feels like. My mother felt judgmental, critical, and unaccepting of me. I felt that I could not do anything right. I learned to fear punishment. I also learned that telling the truth could be painful because even when I admitted things I had done, I was still punished. Then I went to Sunday school and was told that God was loving, gentle, caring, and nurturing. But somewhere inside me, I did not believe it. The words did not match the emotional definition of authority and dependence I had already learned. Outwardly, I listened. The adults were bigger than I was, and I assumed they knew more than I did. I put on a face I thought I was supposed to wear, but inwardly something felt wrong. That feeling of something missing stayed with me for much of my life. As I continued searching for complete recovery, an idea came to me. Look at the major religions of the world and compare their populations. When I did, I saw billions of people divided into religious categories. with many groups believing that they alone had the correct path to God. I could no longer accept the idea of a God who loved one group more than another, who would reject most of humanity because they had been born into the wrong religion. I came to believe that religions were human-made divisions. God had not divided people into competing groups. A loving God would care about every individual, regardless of religion, nationality, culture, or language. That realization changed my relationship with God. I began to separate God from the frightening voice I had carried inside me. The voice that warned me I would be punished for looking beyond my inherited religion was not God. It was not God at all. It was the internalized voice of my mother, who had been my first emotional idea of authority and dependence. Once I understood that, I became able to imagine a God I could trust completely. Not long afterward, I found a prayer called The Only Prayer Man Ever Need. Following the origin of that prayer led me first to the Divine Truth website, and through that website I discovered A.J. Miller and later Mary Luck, who are reincarnated of some of people you know well. What struck me was that AJ was not simply talking about managing addiction. He was teaching that it was possible to get out of addictions by discovering and healing the emotional injuries that created the urges. He spoke specifically about addiction to food. In this teaching, the urge to overeat is not the original problem. Food is being used to suppress, avoid, soothe, or compensate for an emotional injury. Until the injury is discovered and felt, the urge continues to return. That was the kind of answer I had been searching for. I did not want another method for controlling food while the compulsion remained alive underneath. I wanted to understand why the urge existed and how its cause could be removed. Looking back, I feel that my persistent desire for 100% recovery led me through each stage of this journey. The promise of complete recovery kept me searching. The counselor's words removed the boundary around where I was allowed to look. The broader search forced me to question the God I had inherited and to find a God I could completely trust. That led me to the prayer, and then to the Divine Truth website, and then to Jesus and Mary. My addiction to food and overeating is not yet cured, so the search is not over. But I no longer see that as proof that complete recovery is impossible. I see it as evidence there is still an emotional injury to discover, understand, and heal. What some people might call stubbornness has carried me this far. I call it persistence. I was told recovery could be 100%. 100%. I believed in it then, and I still refuse to accept anything less. And you know what it says in the book? It says, knock and continue knocking. Seek and you will find. And that's what I've been doing. And I'm still doing it. Yay! Recovery is out there. All you gotta do is continue looking. Don't stop and rest on your laurels. Later. Bye.